I never thought I would be the kind of man who checks his wife's phone, but 3 weeks before everything fell apart, I became exactly that man, and I have never forgiven myself for it, even though it saved what was left of my life. My name doesn't matter for this story, so I will just tell you who I am. I am 35 years old, I live in Columbus, Ohio, and I work as an HVAC technician. I make about $72,000 a year, nothing fancy, but enough to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. My wife is 33, she works as a receptionist at a local medical clinic, and she brings home around $42,000 a year. We had been married 4 years, together for 9, and we had 2 small kids, a daughter who just turned 7 and a son who was 3. I used to tell people that marrying her was the smartest decision I ever made in my life. I believed that with my whole heart. Our mornings were simple. I would leave early for work. She would get the kids ready for school and daycare, and in the evenings we would cook together, laugh with the kids, and fall asleep, watching some show neither of us really cared about. I never had a reason to doubt her, not once in 9 years. That is what makes everything that happened even harder to accept. It started small, about 8 months before the night everything changed. She stopped talking to me the way she used to. She used to tell me everything, even the boring stuff, what happened at the clinic, what her coworkers said, what she had for lunch. Slowly, that stopped. Her phone was always in her hand or under her pillow at night. She would stay up late texting someone, and when I asked, she would say it was work stuff or an old friend catching up. I told myself I was overthinking it. 9 years is a long time. People change, life gets busy, stress builds up. I buried every doubt I had because I trusted her, and honestly, because I was scared of what it might mean if I didn't trust her. But there was this quiet unease sitting in my chest that never fully went away, no matter how hard I tried to ignore it. Then one night, around 11, I got up for a glass of water. She was in the bathroom, and her phone was sitting on the nightstand, screen lit up. I had never been the type to snoop. I always believed that going through someone's phone was a betrayal in itself. But that night, for some reason, my eyes just landed on the screen, and what I saw changed everything. There was a name I recognized, her college boyfriend, her first love, a guy she had mentioned once or twice over the years, always laughing it off as ancient history. He had joined the army after college and had been stationed all over the country for almost 8 years. They hadn't spoken in all that time, but right there on her screen were hundreds of messages, going back months. My hands were shaking as I scrolled. He was telling her he was being transferred back to Columbus next month. They were planning to meet at a hotel downtown. She had written that she would come up with an excuse for me, probably a fake work meeting, and then I read one message that broke something inside me permanently. She had written that she didn't know how to keep living this marriage, and that she kept imagining what a new life with him would look like. I stood there frozen, like someone had knocked the wind out of me. When I heard the bathroom door open, I set the phone back down exactly where it was and forced my face into something normal. I laid next to her that night, but I didn't sleep. My mind kept circling one question. Was the woman I had built a life with actually someone I didn't know at all? That night I made a decision. I wasn't going to explode. I wasn't going to confront her in anger and lose the chance to know the full truth. So for the next several weeks, I played the part of the normal husband. I smiled, I played with the kids, I talked to her like nothing was wrong, while inside, I was completely falling apart. Every night after she fell asleep, I would quietly go through her phone, screenshot conversations, note dates and times. Slowly, a picture formed, and it wasn't a few weeks of talking. This had been going on for 5, maybe 6 months. I found out she had used 2 shopping trips with friends as cover to actually be on the phone with him for hours. Every new piece of evidence turned my suspicion into certainty. And with every bit of certainty, something in me quietly died. But in the middle of all this heartbreak, another fear started creeping in, one I was almost ashamed to even admit to myself. If she could hide something this big from me for months, if she could lie to my face this easily, what else didn't I know about my own life? That question kept me up at night more than the affair itself did. I would look at my kids sleeping and feel this cold, creeping anxiety I couldn't shake. Without telling anyone, I ordered an at-home DNA testing kit. That decision alone made me feel sick with guilt. Testing my own children felt like a betrayal of them. But I needed the truth, no matter how much it might hurt. I collected samples from both kids and myself and sent everything in. The lab said results would take about 3 weeks. Those 3 weeks were the longest of my entire life. During that waiting period, the day finally came that her old boyfriend was flying back into Columbus. I already knew the date and the hotel because I had read every message. That evening, she told me the clinic had an emergency staff meeting and she would be home late. I nodded like I always did, playing my part while my chest felt like it was caving in. I called my mother to watch the kids and drove to that hotel myself. I sat in the parking lot for almost half an hour before I saw her get out of her car, dressed in a way I hadn't seen in months. A few minutes later, a man walked out of the lobby. They hugged, and they walked back inside together. I didn't storm in. I didn't cry in that parking lot. I just felt numb, all over, like my body had gone quiet. I took a picture of her car parked there, and of the two of them hugging, not really as proof for anyone else, but almost to convince myself that what I was seeing was real and not some nightmare. I drove home, went to bed, and when she came in the next morning, saying the meeting ran long, I said nothing. I decided to wait until the DNA results came in before I said a single word. 3 weeks later, the results hit my email. My hands were shaking as I opened it. My daughter, my 7-year-old, was completely, biologically mine. My son, my 3-year-old boy, was not. That moment broke something in me all over again, but differently this time. It wasn't rage, it was this deep, cold ache, like something had been physically pulled out of my chest. I did the math. My son was born 3 years ago, well before this whole thing with her old boyfriend started, which meant this wasn't connected to him at all. This was an entirely separate truth I had never known existed. That night I finally sat her down. I laid 3 things on the table: the screenshots, the photo from the hotel parking lot, and the DNA report. I kept my voice calm and just said, I need the truth, all of it, right now. She cried first, then broke down completely, and eventually told me everything. She said her old boyfriend had reached out on social media. It started innocent, just catching up. But old feelings resurfaced and things got emotionally intense again. She swore the hotel meeting stayed emotional, not physical, but at that point, I couldn't trust a single word out of her mouth anymore. When I brought up our son, she fell apart even more. She admitted that before we got married, we had gone through a rough patch and briefly separated for a few months, and during that time, she had another relationship. She said when our son was born, she convinced herself in her own head that he was mine, and never let herself think otherwise. I left the house that night and drove around Columbus for hours with no destination, just trying to breathe. I asked myself if there was any version of this marriage worth saving. The answer was clear. This wasn't just about an affair anymore. This was a foundation built on years of things I never knew about. Over the following weeks, I met with a family attorney, understood my rights, and made sure I protected myself and my kids financially and legally. I decided I would always be my daughter's father, full stop, no question. She never did anything wrong. As for my son, I thought about it long and hard, and ultimately chose to stay involved in his life too. I had raised him as my own for 3 years, and that love was real, no matter what a lab report said. The divorce process was slow and painful, but I handled every step of it with as much calm as I could manage. I kept the house, I got primary custody of my daughter, and I slowly started rebuilding a life I actually recognized as my own. Telling you this story now, almost a year has passed. I live with my daughter, and I see my son a few days a week. My heart still isn't fully healed. Honestly, I don't know if it ever will be. But I have learned that the truth, no matter how much it hurts, is always better than living inside someone else's lie. I have made sure my kids know that no matter what happened between me and their mother, their father isn't going anywhere. My marriage ended, my trust was shattered, but I was not destroyed. I picked myself back up, with whatever dignity I had left. And I am doing everything I can to build a stable, honest home for my kids. Now, I want to ask you something, because I still think about this every single day. Did I do the right thing by staying calm and gathering proof instead of confronting her the moment I found out? Should I have walked away completely instead of staying involved in my son's life? What would you have done in my position? Tell me honestly in the comments, because I really want to know what you think I should have done differently. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel more than you know. And make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next true story.